I don't mind the monster guys because people move on. I mean, people get in better shape all the time. Today they're in better shape than when I was a champion, and in 20 years from now, people will be in better shape than they're today. So that's all perfectly fine. But let's just say, let's keep the great classical physique. Let's keep the small waist and the wide shoulder and the kind of athletic look, even though bigger. And so I feel like we in the Arnold Classic have included now the posing again. Because of that, you will see that guys have made much more effort. Over the last 5 years, I've seen great changes already. Very rarely did I see anyone yesterday's stomach get out of control. Very rarely. I look at that in a very sensitive way. And so I think that I want to congratulate the champions for having made a real effort to pay much more attention to posing and to the presentation. And I think in the end it is really beneficial for the audience to watch that. And you can see the reaction when someone poses well on stage. You see the reaction of the audience, you get up, there's more excitement there and all that stuff. So it's great that all of you have really paid attention to that and really started really thinking about, keeping the waist as small as possible.
It was nice, we had a few classic routines. Hidetei Yamagishi from Japan, very classical. Cedric, always very classical, very much in your own style from years ago. And then you had Freddie Smalls up there in the spirit of Kai Green. He didn't stand on his head, but absolutely phenomenal. But differences between classic and pop and lock in and all that kind of stuff. But the audience seems to like them both.
Well, the audience clearly like both, but I just thought yesterday was a perfect example of how great and entertaining posing can be. I mean, it was wonderful, the different styles of posing, kind of this flow. It's basically a reflection of yourself. It's great to watch the slow performance and the graceful performance. Then you have someone come out and do kind of like a dance routine, and also to show the flexibility and all this. I mean, to see that many guys going down in a split position. I mean, I was holding myself and said, ow. I mean, this is like wild. In my days, I tell you, I've never seen anyone do a split. That is really extraordinary. With that size and this huge thighs and back and all that stuff, and to be able to do a split like that. So this was great, and this really adds to your posing routine's points, I think. And so I thought the posing yesterday was really extraordinary and very entertaining for me and all the people that I had there that have never seen a bodybuilding competition before.
Absolutely. Changing the subject, we've just seen the Olympics come and go, Winter Olympics. In every sport, from you pick it, from baseball to curling, there's drug controversies these days. What are your thoughts on that presently and where that is today in the sports in general?
Well, first of all, I want to just, because you said the Olympics, it's really interesting, because bodybuilding was controlled for so many years by weightlifting. The Weightlifting Federation, as you know, Bob Hoffman,
AAU,
and not that they were evil people or anything like that. They tried very hard to help bodybuilding, but nevertheless, their first priority was weightlifting. And so bodybuilding for years was affected by that it didn't get the full attention of a federation that was not just thinking first on weightlifting and then bodybuilding, or first on powerlifting and then bodybuilding. And the same thing happened also in the Olympics. All of a sudden, there was a documentary on about snowboarding, and they were complaining how for years they were controlled by the ski federation. Skiing meaning that you ski on two skis and the snowboarders have one board, and they wanted to be separated, and they couldn't separate. And so they were always stuck with their performances that were boring and that were not really exciting. And then they separated from the Ski Federation. And now they have all those different competitions in snowboarding. And this became kind of the hardest competition. And now they are exploding. And they're going even much further than skiing is. And this is exactly what happened in bodybuilding. When we got free from weightlifting, we love weightlifting. And we have them included in the Arnold Classic here, in our sports festival and all this. But We are now on our own, and we make the decisions in which direction we want to go with bodybuilding. It's not a Bob Hoffman, it's not a weightlifter that makes the decision. It's bodybuilders and people that are interested in bodybuilding that make the decisions. So this is the great thing, and the kind of things, the growing pains that we went through, other sports go through the same way. So it was interesting to watch that, how the snowboarders finally are celebrating and say, we are free and now we can do our own competition. So that's number one I want to say. Number two, when it comes to drugs, look, I think that as long as there will be sports, there will be drug use. And there will be drug testing, and there will be, for every test there will be a way around it, because that's what drug companies do, is they check what is available in technology, and then they do the drug testing. So you really never know anymore when you look at any sports event who takes something, who doesn't, who is enhancing here, who is enhancing there, and all those kind of things. And we, of course, the Arnold Classic organization, we don't get involved in those kind of issues because we have 78 different organizations here. So we have, the gymnasts here, we have the cheerleaders here, we have the powerlifters, we have the world's strongest man, we have the fencers. We have all of those different federations here, so we cannot get involved in all of those different federations' drug policies and drug testing policies. So we just go and have a blanket statement that says, look guys, this is bodybuilding, let's build the body, let's make the body healthy, and let's stay away from drugs and all kinds of this stuff, but we cannot go and tell someone, I think that you've been taking something that maybe you cannot handle, something like that. So we don't get involved in this. So we have 78 different sports, 78 federations, and they have to do their own checking, and they have to have their own policies. And we are very happy that we have that many sports part of this, and we hope that they have their own policies and follow through.
Champion, and at 48 years old continues to defy Father Time. And missed his title by 1 point. What do you think about Dexter and his extraordinary career here on the Arnold stage?
Well, in the movies we have special effects. This is no special effect. This is the real life. And so to me it is, beyond belief. Because I tell you that when I came back to compete in the 1980 Mr. Olympia, I saw how tough it is when you lay off for a while, and when you get to be over 30 in my case, how injuries started coming in, and how I could not come back as quick and heal. And as time goes on, it becomes more and more punishing for the body, and this is why you see usually younger people doing sports and performing and competing and so on. So this is a very unusual situation that someone can go and be in the top shape in their life with the age of 48. So I think, first of all, it deserves a huge hand of applause for Dexter Jackson for being so extraordinary. So only he can tell you how he does it and how he stays away from injuries and how he can recuperate and recover the body. The only one that would know is him, but to me, I look at it every time I see him and I'm in awe to look at him and to say to myself, I at the age of 30 and 31 have already felt the pain and the injuries, and he's now 48 and he's still competing, and it looks flawless. It's really unbelievable to see that, so congratulations to the great work that you're doing.
Absolutely.
And I just want to add that it's not just inspiring me, but I think it is inspiring millions and millions of people that think that they're over the hill because they're 40 or they shouldn't do anything anymore. This is exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about inspiring people and making them feel kind of guilty when they walk away from the Arnold Classic and say, well, if this guy with 48 is still a champion, then we can do something about it too, and we can go to the gym and work out. So you're inspiring so many people, so this is what this is all about.
Arnold, as you came out here, you came down the line, you shook every one of these champions' hands. 30 years of excellence and Arnold Classic champions. As you look down from everybody from Rich Gaspari, the very first champion, can you remember details almost from every show. I know you've got a very sharp recollection when it comes to detail, and every single year that you're seeing represented here.
I would not go that far that I would say that I know details of every show. But there are certain people on the stage that have very clear memories simply because of the relationship we had and the conversations we had. And Gaspari was one of those guys that was always an animal. You know, so I remember that, but not physically speaking, but he had this energy, and he always wanted to be successful, not just in bodybuilding, but in other things, in business. And so he had that. And so it's no surprise to me that to see him be so successful with his business, and to be such a great motivation for so many people. Because I think that one has to be clear that there's a certain time where everyone's career comes to an end. And it's sad. You know, it's no different than when you're governor and you all of a sudden have to leave office because there's only 2 terms, and then that's it, right? So you go, now what? You know, so it's kind of like a downer. But then the same is with competing. I remember when I left this bodybuilding stage in 1980, and you thought, oh, gee. But I mean, I had something else to go to. I did Conan the Barbarian, and I did movies and so on. And so I think that's the key thing when there's several up here on stage, as a matter of fact, many that have taken bodybuilding and then continued on and used that background for something really good. And if it's in business, if it is to be motivational speakers or something, whatever it may be, and I think this is really terrific. And so I thought that all of those guys that came to the Arnold Classic here and started winning competition, they were very wise in using that title. And not just the Arnold Classic, but Mr. Olympia, whatever title it is, professional event, using the title to do something with that, because this is what it's all about. It's not just about your love and you know, while you're training, but how do you make a living of that later on? How can you have a health food store and be really smart about health food? How can you have a gymnasium? How do you have a gymnasium chain? How do you have a food supplement line? How do you do all this stuff? How do you come out with your own magazine? Whatever it is, there's so many opportunities today. Because like I said, it's such a growing business, it's such a huge industry. So I'm proud of each and every one of them for the great work that they've done and how much they've contributed to popularize bodybuilding.
Arnold, one of the memories I'm sure you would recall fondly was when Vince Taylor came out, did his now famous Terminator routine. And this has never been seen before. What were your thoughts as you were watching Vince do that incredible Terminator routine? Taylor, right to you.
I immediately say to myself, I wish I could move like that. It's really fantastic. I mean, it's talent. It's unbelievable talent to do this to the music and to have this kind of robotic kind of moves down and all that. I never had those kind of moves down, but I mean, it looks fantastic on stage, and it looks fantastic with the posing. But this is what we were talking about earlier when we talked about posing, to be unique, to be different, and to be entertaining. And at the same time to show this extraordinary body and the definition and all that stuff. So it was fantastic.
Ronnie Coleman comes out back in the day as a multi-Olympia champion and announces to the world, I'm going to do the Arnold. I want the Arnold title. He says he wants the Hummer, but I actually think he wanted the title. But what did you think at that time of an Olympia champion coming onto your stage for your title?
Well, first of all, Ronnie was he was kind of like, he was breaking through from where we were in size, and all of a sudden he became kind of a whole new dimension. You know, there was like just lumps and mass.
He's very lumpy.
I mean, it's like, I remember that he and I talked, and he was standing right in front of me just before he went out on stage. And I remember that just, it took me a while to look from the left shoulder to the right shoulder. You know, just I kept going like this, and going like this. The shoulder was just so wide, especially when he did his lat spread. I mean, it looked like the curtain closed, and there was no more light coming through. So it was really unbelievable, you know, just to see that. And he was such a graceful poser also at the same time. So it was really a whole new dimension in bodybuilding. I think that he showed the bodybuilders that there's a whole other way of, in as far as size and proportion that you can go. And I think that he broke through that. And since then, a lot of the guys have broken through that, and they've gotten much, much bigger and more impressive.
One of the things you can't help but notice is as you look at all these great champions over 30 years' time, is the different kinds of physiques, not just styles of posing, but actual physiques from, you know, from Sean Ray to Mike Francois to Branch Warren. You know, Branch brought a whole new level of conditioning that we had probably seen since Rich Gasperi back in the day. You know, wide as he is, tall, and as muscular as anybody on the stage. He's won 4 most muscular awards, Branch? 6, sorry. 6 most muscular awards on the stage. If that doesn't tell you everything, but what do you think of the wide variety, Arnold, this is what truly makes bodybuilding great, is that it's not, everybody's not a cookie cutter. You don't have to look a complete certain way to earn a title of this stature.
Well, I think the important thing is that what these guys have done is, even though the bodies are so different, but they have adjusted their posing routine to their body type. And everyone has their own unique quality when they go on stage, even though, as you said, they're so different from one another. And I think that's what makes what creates the kind of entertainment. That's what makes it enjoyable to watch. And what fascinates me is how in the end the judges can come up with a decision. Because I tell you that yesterday, when you saw the top 6 guys standing out there, I would have needed at least another hour to stand up there and to check out body part by body part. At the time when this competition was over, I could not make up my mind yet who should win and who should not. So it gets so difficult because the guys are all getting so good, so defined, so cut. Everyone has now huge calves. Well, maybe there was one guy. Every guy, it used to be that, you know, when you were of color and were African American, they didn't have calves. And you know, that was in the old days. And we white people didn't have the waistline that they had and all this stuff. But today it's gone. It's gone. Yesterday, everyone had massive calves. Everyone had a small waist. Everyone had this huge, gigantic shoulders and all this stuff. So there is no anymore the difference between one type of a body and another. So it was really extraordinary to see that. And like I said, the judging becomes tougher and tougher today. I don't know how the judges do it to come up with a winner. Because if you really take this seriously, this whole thing, because it's not an easy decision to make, because everyone works so hard, so many hours, and puts so much into it, so you cannot just dismiss someone and say, well, you know, maybe next time I can let him win, but this time I put so-and-so because I can't make up my mind or something. It's not that easy of a decision. It's a tough decision to make.
Absolutely. The judges certainly did a great job, I think, and to be applauded for that. Comparing different physiques is very difficult for these judges. Like I say, you've got guys 5'3", and you've got guys 6'2", as you were. Back in the day, you and Franco, many battles. Which, speaking of which, he's here today, and he wants a rematch on this stage right now. He says he's got the short end of the stick, and he wants you, Governor, right here. Ladies and gentlemen, Franco Colombo. Franco. Gentlemen, pose down.
I really have to be nice to them because they're bigger.
How are you, sir?
Good, good. How are you doing? Okay?
I am doing very well, yes. I'm just talking with your friend here, and he was talking about when he beat you back in the 1972 Mr. Olympia.
You mean 75?
75.
Yeah.
You remember that one?
There are a lot of people, though, especially the short guys, they say I should have won. You know? And
They
I
should have.
didn't like that.
They should have won.
Arnold said, you know what, you'll never catch me. Next year, maybe I'm not here. You know? But I thought that we are here for an educational seminar to talk about training, nutrition, and I've been waiting and waiting, you know, to find things from you guys, from the new champions, some secrets, nothing, just told.
Oh, wait a minute, I beg to differ. Vince Taylor, just a few minutes, maybe you weren't here yet, he gave the secrets to his success: hamburgers, Coke, and ketchup.
Oh, I can tell you a story about hamburgers. You know, in Europe, we didn't do much hamburgers. That's an American thing of that. And we would go to the store. I would buy steaks. And then when he went to the store, he bought hamburgers. Then he would cook them. And then he would do his things, you know, whatever he was doing. He would go and pull them out, burn. And I never got to taste a good hamburger because he just overcooked them. And I never figured out if he was doing it on purpose, that I cook, or, you know, whatever, he didn't care, you know. And I have to tell you one thing. For Arnold, they're always number ones and numbers 5. There is no number 2 too much. And the number 1 was, he prioritized the training. Arnold said, number 1 is training. Every time in the gym I slow down training, he will say, Franco, get over here, do 1 more rep. You did 9. Well, I counted in the mirror. You're supposed to do 11. I thought we were doing 10, you know. But he saw food as more like essential, and you do have to eat when you train. And we were like doing everything that was as fast as possible. Like in the morning we did a good protein drink. And, you know, it's very interesting that we never really went on a strong diet. I think you people should know that. Like, we never believed in low-fat things. You know, everything was, no, you have, forget the milk. We want whipped cream. You know, and that is, that's how we trained.
But that's why we were never as ripped as those guys that were. You got to be honest, Franco, here. Okay? I know you're Italian, but I mean, what the hell?
You know, I did feel, I had like the skin was always a little thick here. And I never liked it. But then we competed and they used to give body parts. And then one day Frank Zen came to me, and Frank Zen says, I beat Arnold, so you next. I say, okay. I say, we're going to compete 100 times, and you will never beat me. And I said, even in your sit-ups, he used to do 1,000 sit-ups. And when I got to 25, I had aches and pains, and I went home. And I beat him sit-ups, so after that he got used to it to lose. But, you know, I want to say that we didn't even know probably, I don't know if you knew. But once in a while we did mind training, you know, like talking like that with the mind, and I didn't even know I was doing that probably.
Take me back, Arnold, to your early days with Franco. Before the big bucks started rolling in, you guys were putting up bricks. You were building walls in California. Take us back to that.
Well, bodybuilding started like that, you know, where people really had to work and had to have a regular job. And so because I was Mr. Universe and because Franco was Mr. Universe and Mr. Olympia, didn't mean that we didn't have to work. I mean, I remember Joe Weider gave us $65 a week. Okay, so you have to think about that. But we were very grateful that we got that money because it gave us a little cushion and a little bit something. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, we had to go out and do construction work. Franco was a construction worker and he was a bricklayer and masonry expert. He trained that in Italy and in Germany. So I knew that, and I was always kind of more the businessman. So I said to Franco, there's no reason why we shouldn't open up a company. That's pretty easy in America. All we have to do is get to the city hall and get the business license and go to the IRS and let them know we will make an estimated amount of money every year and we pay the taxes and get our social security number and all this. And that's exactly what we did. We put an ad in the paper in the LA Times, and 2 days after we put the ad in, European bricklayers, experts in masonry work and stone work and all this, the earthquake happened in Los Angeles. And so a lot of the chimneys fell off, and a lot of cracked the walls and patio floors and all this. And so Franco and I, we got jobs day and night. I mean, all we did was work on construction, and made a lot of money this way. And so this was kind of our beginning. But that's where bodybuilding was then. You had to kind of figure out how do you, and in those days we trained like 5 hours a day. Well, not him. He didn't like to train that long. Franco trained around 3.5, 4 hours. You always
talk to people sometimes.
Yeah, exactly, yes. But so we had two different body types. Mine, I would always like to be a little bit overtrained, because this was my only way to really get defined, because like as he said, we were not on a diet per se. We were on a diet, but you know, that just meant don't have desserts or something like that. But if we then had, and even that didn't work, because a week before the Olympia we went to the House of Pies and had two cherry pies and all that stuff. So we didn't always have the discipline. But in any case, I overtrained. That's how I got defined. And Franco trained also very hard, but he didn't like to train us hard. He trained us hard, but not as long, I should say. And his body didn't need it. But we were, you know, had a great time being training partners. You have to understand that I come from the bodybuilding background and weightlifting kind of background. So when I met Franco in 1965, he won the European Championships in powerlifting in the lightweight division. And I won the Junior Mr. Europe competition. So that's how we met. So he said to me, I want to be a bodybuilding champion. And I said to him, I want to be a powerlifting champion. So we started training together when I moved to Munich eventually. And then I talked Guida into bringing Franco to America. So because I came over here in 68, so Guida brought Franco over in 69. So this is the great work that Joe Guida did. He did not kind of like just throw money at you, but he gave you opportunities. And he gave us opportunities, Frank and me. We wouldn't be sitting here if it wouldn't be for Joe Guida. He has really helped us. He gave us the exposure in the magazines, the covers inside the magazine and all that stuff. And he was an absolute jewel, and we were like best of friends with him until he passed away. But this is where bodybuilding started. We had to work, and we never were shy of working. On top, not only because of bodybuilding, but because we were immigrants. And Franco and I, we were always the kind of immigrants. We loved America. Loved America. And we said, we got to work twice as hard as the Americans, because we have to give something back. To say thank you to America for receiving us with open arms and giving us all these opportunities.